Welcome back to yet another episode of the Geeks and Barbells podcast, where we discuss fun stuff, things about creativity, where it comes from, how it enters into your mind, and how basically we can figure out how to live an awesome life and just enjoy ourselves, whether it's just things we're doing for hobbies or it's our work. Whatever it is that you choose to do, how can you bring that maximum output of your creative energy to it? Now, I wanted to talk about something which I think is extremely important. So, I grew up being diagnosed with ADHD, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, when I was very young. And I really believe that even though from what I've seen in the research, there seems to be some proof that ADHD exists, it's very vague, and the general view on it just is nonsensical. And that's because people seem to think that for a young child, having too much energy is wrong. The fact that a student, a child, cannot focus on what their teacher wants them to focus, that is wrong. Which, of course, to anyone as an adult, if someone were to just come to you and say, hey, pay attention to me, even though you're not interested. And if you don't pay attention to me when you're not interested, well, guess what? You have a mental disorder. You would punch them in the face, because that is an extremely rude thing to say to someone. Yet we do this to children all the time. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that energy, so the ability to be interested, focused, to have a clear-headed moment where you can give your all to a subject or a person or whatever it is very, very reliant on two different processes. One is internal, the other is external. Now, internally, what does that mean? So you want to have a body. So people say, when they think physically, a lot of times they just think of their, below the neck. But that is not what we mean by physically. Physically means, is your body producing energy well? Is it metabolizing food properly? Are you digesting well? Are you capable of producing energy from fats, from carbohydrates, even from protein, depending on the type of diet you've chosen in your life? Are you sleeping well enough that your system is recovered? There's so many things internally that go towards producing what we would call energy. So is your body functioning well? And that is simply a matter of good sleep, good nutrition, which means enough calories intaken to actually produce energy, and enough vitamins and minerals that your body can actually use to produce things like hormones and neurotransmitters and actually just make everything function the way they're supposed to. And then, of course, movement, which means, is your body actually strong enough, which is very context dependent, but is your body strong enough that you are not, we will say, malfunctioning? Do you have good cardiovascular health? Is your heart big and strong? Can you walk for a long while without being exhausted? Can you just run a little bit without being exhausted? Can you pick something up without hurting yourself? If your body is strong enough that those things will not get you down, and you're getting some good sleep and good nutrition, then internally you will be able to produce good energy. You will be perfectly fine. You will feel good. But yet, there are some people, many people I would argue, these days who they take good care of themselves. They train, they try to get some good sleep. They eat pretty well. And yet they still feel this lack of focus, these memory issues, this brain fog. And of course, sometimes that can be related still to, let's say, your diet, because you are eating something that might be healthy in a general sense but doesn't work well with your system. That can happen. But for a lot of people, it's just because their external environment, what they're doing, what they're intaking from their external environment, does not lead to a good energy output. What does that mean? Well, when we go back to something like, being diagnosed with ADHD, well, I was so energetic So therefore, I needed to be given a pill to shut myself down. But why was I energetic? Well, it's because my body was internally producing lots and lots of energy. I wanted to go output that on things that interested me. I wanted to run around. I wanted to be more physical. I was a much more physically dominant child when I was young. And instead of that being allowed to be nourished, that was told, this is wrong, take this pill, shut the fuck up. And that's probably the main issue I have with the diagnosis of ADHD, because for a lot of kids, they're just children who are full of energy, and that should be nourished. It should be nurtured, and people just don't do that. And the reason why there's like that outbounding of energy, besides being a child, is just because the subject being shown within the classroom is not interesting to that child, and it would not be interesting to them as an adult, most probably. But especially as a child, it is hard to be convinced as a child that this thing is so important that you should just force yourself to be interested, which everybody knows you cannot do that. But yet we all do that into adulthood. We go to college, we go to universities, we continue to force ourselves to pay attention to a subject which is clearly not interesting to us. And what does that do? It makes us feel miserable. It makes us feel brain fog. It makes us feel lethargic. It drains our energy, because we're requiring like 4 times more internal energy just to be able to focus on this thing. You go out with people you're not actually interested in. You feel crappy. You go to a work environment that is, maybe it could be 1 or 2 scenarios. It could be the work is interesting to you, but your social environment in the workplace, your boss and all those people, they drain you because you have no interest in them, or they're very negative. Or you have a really good work environment with the social aspect, but the work itself drains you dry. And so many people feel that they have this constant kind of lethargic brain fog for most of their life. And a lot of people, how do they deal with that? Well, they drink a shit ton of coffee. They, watch TV shows and try to play little games to distract themselves. They basically don't focus on their work or put in any good effort in most of the things they're doing, whether it's scholastically or in the work environment, or even when they're out with friends or family. Instead of actually paying attention to their friends, what are they doing? They're on their phone. It's this constant need to distract yourself with other stuff so that you don't need to deal with how bored you are in the situation. So you just feel this constant low level of energy. So what do you have to do to fix that? I think for most people, you don't really need to hear the answer, because it's pretty much clearly spelled out in everything I just discussed, which is you don't want to put yourself in a place where the environment you're in, so whether it's the social environment, the work environment, the school environment, is so draining to you that you feel like crap all the time, and that you need to do other things just to pick yourself up. Now, you may choose that because of the money you're making or the degree that you want to get, that you're willing to put up with that energy drain and force yourself through that. That is your own personal choice. But you need to be aware of that thing, and you need to try to figure out ways that you can pick yourself up that aren't as destructive as many people do, which is, partying on weekends and getting massively drunk, or drinking shit tons of coffee, or eating tons of junk food, just to try to get a dopamine hit. So dopamine is we'll say the hormone which gets shot into your system when you feel nice, and it's what makes you feel nice, actually. So it's kind of a tit for tat little circular moment in the system. But you don't want to hijack your dopamine system with negative things. You don't want to just be giving yourself shots of adrenaline with caffeine to try to stay awake, and then watching a bunch of stupid things over and over again and getting hooked to your phone just so that you can try to get a dopamine hit so you can make it through your class. That stuff just creates problematic, we will call them even addictions to your phone, addictions to drugs and other substances, or just really bad habits, whether nutritionally or any other things in your life. So you want to take care of yourself internally, but you also want to take care of yourself externally. Ideally, You wouldn't hang out with friends or family who make you feel like shit. Ideally, you wouldn't work in a job that makes you want to like fall asleep every 5 seconds. Ideally, you wouldn't be in classrooms that make you want to pull out your hair because the subject matter is so boring to you. Those are the ideal scenarios. If you can lean towards the ideal as much as possible, do that. If you cannot, then just be aware that if you're going to put yourself in a situation that makes you feel less than optimal, try to figure out ways to pick yourself up that will be more beneficial, such as, training or going out to beautiful places, or, bringing things that you actually do enjoy, like other kinds of hobbies or interests that will be rewards to you. So if I make it through this classroom, after this, I will, go to the gym, or I will have that amazing banana strawberry mix that I like to have. Whatever it is. It could be food, but again, you have to be careful with these because you don't want to create bad habits, but you want to try to mitigate as much as possible the really, really bad consequences of constantly putting yourself in shitty external environments. Okay, so find 2 or 3 or 4 things that you really, really enjoy that are actually beneficial to you. It could be, I'm going to make it through this class and then I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and draw because I really like drawing. It calms me down. It makes me feel good. Whatever it is for you, figure that out. Just don't go down that rabbit hole of doing tons of stuff you don't enjoy and then doing other things that are really bad for your health that will actually make you feel even worse the next day internally after, and then it creates these bad cycles. So watch out for that trap and make sure to start really looking around yourself and figuring out where these negative and positive environmental inputs are coming from, and try to lean towards, like I said, that ideal version. So I'm going to keep it short today at that. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask, leave a review, like, subscribe, and I will be back again in the future, in the fun times. Peace, everyone.